Heyo! Welcome to Team S&G combo tutorial. Now this is the first one of these we got on the channel, and as I stated in the Ancient Warrior deck profile, this will be the new format. We'll be having a combo tutorial separate from the deck profile, as the deck profiles were getting rather long. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. I certainly noticed that nobody had commented about it, but a lot of my friends and a lot of my colleagues who do keep an eye on my channel do watch stuff, all sort of suggested maybe I split these out. So, this will be our first ever combo tutorial. Let me know what you guys think about the new format of doing the deck profile and the combo tutorial separately in the comment section below. And while we're at it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe from below. The first card that is really important to this deck's combos is the Ancient Warriors Saga 3 Visits. This card is your main enabler. It's such a good card, it's so powerful, and it can really give us a situation where we have swarm ability from a deck that doesn't necessarily have swarm ability. This isn't like Black Wings, where if you control a Black Wing, special summon a Black Wing. This isn't like Orcust, where you can just continue to spam the board with machines from the grave. This isn't like Spiral, where you just build a, 16 monster board, and you go through 90% of your deck in a turn. This deck doesn't do that. This deck sort of builds a board with 1 or 2 monsters, or maybe 3 or 4, and it sort of tries to slowly control the pace of the game, or, if you're going second, it tries to build a board with 4 or 5 monsters that can push for game. But this deck does not have the big spam ability. This card, though, does enable our ability to spam the board, at least enough to push for game. So we're going to have this blue card here. That's going to act as our field center. We're going to go from there with that. Now, what Ancient Warrior Saga does is that the 3 Visits does, is that it lets us search out another card from our deck, so long as we can summon or special summon an Ancient Warrior monster. So if you have this card in your opening hand, the first thing you're going to want to do, activate this. Boom. That's activated. Now, it doesn't really matter which level 4 Ancient Warrior monster you have in your hand. If you were to have any of these 4 monsters, you would be in good shape with this card on your field already, because all you'd have to do is normal summon any of them, right? Now, the best ones to have are going to be either of these 2, because they also then let you make it so that sending your Ancient Warrior Saga 3 Visits to the grave really easy. So we'll start off with you have some Ma'o in hand. You normal summon your some Ma'o. That'll let you search a card. Typically, if you have some Ma'o in your hand and you've normal summoned it, what you're going to want to search is your Virtuous Leo Schwang. Then you activate some Ma'o's effect, and you send Ancient Warrior Saga 3 Visits to the grave, and you're going to then want to search out one of your bigger boss monsters in the Valiant Zhongde. So, this whole little interaction of activating your 3 Visits, normal summoning your some Ma'o, and then activating some Ma'o's effect has then given you the cards you really need to push for the game. By sending this to the grave, when this is sent to grave, you get to special summon the card that you searched with its effect to the field. Now you can special summon any card to the field, but seeing as you've special searched for Virtuous Leo Schwang, you're going to use this card being sent to the grave to special summon Leo Schwang. Now this gives you what everyone calls the dupe lock, which is your opponent can't attack either of these 2 monsters. So going first or going second, this is a really solid play. Now, because you also searched out your Valiant Zhongde using some Ma'o's search effect, because you also control 2 different attributes, you can now special summon Valiant Zhongde. This is now the only thing on the field your opponent can attack, and if your opponent attacks it, you draw a card, which will then trigger some Ma'o's effect to spin back something from their side of the field to their hand. So, this is a very simple 2-card combo, and it can really help you push for game. Now, once again, we'll say that you have started with your 3 Visits. But this time, we'll say you're going second. Instead of going first, you're going to go second. What you're then going to do is you're going to special summon YuGiOh. This will trigger this to allow you to search. You can then search YuMuOh. You then normal summon YuMuOh. You use YuMuOh's effect to send this to the grave, allowing you to search out Liu Xuan. It's looking very familiar right now, right? Now, because this is sent to grave as cost, at the end of the chain, this effect activates to let you special summon an Ancient Warrior from hand, meaning you can special summon what you search with YuMuOh. And you can now special summon your Liu Xuan. Again, you've built your dupe block, and you have a big boss monster your opponent has to attack into. Also, this is now the only thing your opponent can target with card effects, meaning if they don't have non-targeting spot removal, they can't actually get around the dupe block. So going second, this can be really good play to have. Now, if you've gotten very lucky, and you've managed to also have Valiant Zhongde in hand, you can special summon him as well if you want. So this is a typical play. This is sort of what you want to build. This is kind of the key to this deck's main sort of strategy. Being able to put these two on board together is really clutch. Let's talk about combo number 2. Let's say that you haven't opened all that well, right? Because let's face facts, we've all been there. Let's say we've opened with one of our 3 Fire Formation Tankies. And nothing else. It could happen. We can activate the Tenki. If it doesn't get negated, that can let us search out our Graceful Shugong. Graceful Shugong is really valuable in this deck because you can normal summon him, activate his effect, sending Tenki, and that will then let you search any of your 3 Ancient Warrior spells and traps. Now, if you've gone first, typically what you're probably going to want to search will be your defensive Changban. You're going to set that, and on your opponent's turn, you're going to, during the main phase, at the end of the main phase, you're going to activate it, send it to grave to keep Shugong on the field, and hopefully give you the ability to push for game going third. But going first, you're possibly still going to want to search out your 3 visits. This is just such a good card for you to have on the field that, frankly, it's what you'd like. Now again, this is a really suboptimal opening, for obvious reasons. In this sort of opening, you are likely going to want to search for your Changban because this is only any good to you on your turn, whereas this is good to you on your opponent's. Now, if we've opened something a little bit better, in our Tenki and our Tenzu, now we're really talking. We're cooking with fire here. You're going to want to activate your Tenki. You're going to use your Tenki's effect to search out your YuMuOh. You're going to normal summon your YuMuOh. You're going to use his effect, sending off Tenki. You're going to want to search out your Liu Xuan. Then you're going to activate your Tenzu. Normal summon your Liu Xuan. If your opponent's established a board with 3 or more monsters, you're going to send off your Tenzu, and you're going to special summon from your deck your Valiant Zhongde. And again, another thing this deck can do, it's quite a consistent deck in the sense that it does have so much searchability. This is a really good board to sort of put yourself in good shape for. Now, there was a couple times where I ended up in the tournament with Changban in hand and YuMuOh in hand in my opening turn. And so in a situation like that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to summon your Changmo. Summon your YuMuOh, and if you have Changban in hand, you send Changban for YuMuOh's effect, for the cost of YuMuOh's effect, and you're going to want to search out your Valiant Zhongde. Then on your opponent's turn, when they declare an attack on your YuMuOh, again, this is assuming you've opened really suboptimally, you're going to banish your YuMuOh, you're going to banish your Changban in their battle phase, special summon your Liu Xuan. And that's going to force your opponent in a situation where they can't attack either of your monsters, and they have to pass the turn back to you. And because you were smart and you searched out your Valiant Zhongde, on your turn, you can special summon him and really push for game, which can be really valuable to you. So, these are some basic simple combos. Now, we're going to show you an interesting combo and an interesting interaction this deck can do if you open 3 Visits, Gamma Seal, and any of your level 4 Ancient Warriors. So, we'll start off activating the 3 Visits. We're then going to tribute something off of our opponent's side of the field. So, here's Sir Lo Guanyang. Our opponent's playing a mirror match here. Alright, we're going to tribute that off, and we're going to special summon to their side of the field the Gamma Seal. Now, the lighting's not great, so you're just going to have to believe me, that's a Gamma Seal. Alright, that there is a Gamma Seal. So, special summon our Gamma Seal. Right, see? You can see it. It's a Gamma Seal. Special summon our Gamma Seal to our opponent's side of the field. Then what we're going to do is we're going to normal summon our Sun Mu'o. We're going to activate our Sun Mu'o's effect. And we're going to normal summon our Sun Mu'o. That will trigger the 3 Visits effect, to search out your Liu Shuan. Then we're going to activate Sun Mu'o's effect. And we're going to send this to grave to search out our Shangde. Then what we're going to do is we're going to normal summon our Liu Shuan, and we're going to special summon our Shangde. Then we're going to go into the battle phase, and we're going to declare an attack with our Sun Mu'o. That will target the Gamma Seal. Liu Shuan is going to activate his effect upon attack declaration, letting you draw a card, triggering Sun Mu'o's effect to bounce the Gamma Seal back to your own hand so that you can use it again on your opponent's next turn. This is why Gamma Seal is a staple in this deck and why I'm not going to be getting rid of it anytime soon. In any of the future iterations of this deck, Gamma Seal will always be around. And that's because this little interaction of being able to bounce your own Gamma Seal back to your hand, taking away a monster on your opponent's side of the field, being able to play through a lot of their opponent's effects with things like that, this is what makes this deck so powerful. So that sort of does it for the main combo tutorial. I hope that you guys learned something from this. Recap. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 7 rounds at the regionals, and we're going to talk about what occurred, how the deck did, and what I liked about my Ancient Warrior decks at the Reading Regionals 2020. Now, I do have a special treat for you. I kept all of the packs that I got from the Reading Regionals, and I've managed to hold off opening them, which is really difficult to do, guys, so I can open them here with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about we're going to talk about 2 rounds, and then we're going to open a pack. So, round 1. Round 1 saw me playing against Altergeist. Now, I managed to go 2-0 here. There were several key cards to this matchup for me, first of which only appeared in Game 2, and that's because it was in the side deck originally. That was Royal Decree. Now, everyone knows what this does. It basically turns off traps. So playing against Altergeist, killer card. Game 1, I was able to win by being able to spam the field with the additional summon that Tenzu gives me, and with being able to build the lock using Sun Mu'o, Liu Shuan, and then getting to Valiant Zhongde. This coupled with the Sun Liu Alliance giving all of my monsters a power boost. The Sun Liu Alliance giving all my monsters a power boost was just a bit too much for my opponent to stop. The other card that came really clutch in Game 1, though, to make it so that a lot of their interactions with me were somewhat muted, was my 1 copy of Raigeki. I managed to open with that, Tenzu, Tenki, and a Ancient Warrior monster. I think it was Shugong, who then let me spiral off because I could. The Sun Liu Alliance, as I say, came in clutch, helping me push for game, giving my monsters a big power boost. The Raigeki came in clutch, being able to stop my opponent And then in game 2, it was a very similar sort of setup, except I ended up with Royal Decree instead of Raigeki to turn off all of their traps. So, yeah, that's really sort of how round 1 went. As I say, I went 2-1. I went 2-0 in round 1, and ended up coming away with the victory, which was really good. It was probably less of a fun match for me than I would have liked. I'm not a big fan of back row heavy decks such as Altergeist, but being able to get the win against them and get the first win of the day really helped me set up the rest of my day, and it really sort of gave me the confidence boost in this deck that I kind of needed, because I wasn't sure how well the deck would do, considering the fact it was quite a new deck altogether. Now round 2 was probably my favorite round. I ended up playing against DDD, and I don't really know how DDD works. I don't really fully understand it. I just don't have the big brain required to play DDD or understand how it does what it does. And that led to problems. In game 1, I was OTK'd. Nothing I could do. I didn't really draw open very well, and I sort of ended up in a tight spot. In game 2, I sided in both of my crackdowns. And they came clutch. Because what I was able to do was going second. What I was able to do was go first, which I probably shouldn't have done considering the fact I'd been OTK'd, but I chose to go first because I felt like being able to stop them on their turn with things like Crackdown and things like the defensive Chongbon would be better for me than trying to build a board or trying to build a board through the negations that DDD can put out. So what ended up happening is he put up a Crystal Wing to try and help push himself for game, and I ended up crackdowning his Crystal Wing when he tried to negate my Ash. So he activated, I think it was Dark Contract, to search out a DDD monster. I activated Ash, he activated Crystal Wing, I negated his Crystal Wing by taking it with Crackdown. And so the Ash then ended up going through, stopping his search, which was absolutely clutch search for him, and he ended up having to pass the turn back to me, and I was able to then spam the board with some Ma'o, Liu Xuan, and Zhong Dai, and then just push for game. So that's sort of how game 2 went down. And then game 3, I ashed his Foolish Burial, and I managed to get him down to 1,800 life points, and he had 2 contracts on the board, and there was just nothing he could do. He drew, standby phase happened, and he had to pay 2,000 life points, letting me win game. And that was really good. Again, it gave me a lot more confidence in the deck, and I felt like I was in the driving seat this tournament. So, that's 2 rounds, and as promised, we're going to open 1 pack of Ignition Assault. So here we go. I've been looking forward to opening these for a while, guys. Alright. So we have 1 Shiny Black Sea Squatter, 1 Eyes Ritual, Megalith Emergence, Matching Outfits, Sky Striker Maneuver Scissors Cross, a Virtuous Liu Xuan. Talk about ironic. 1-Time Thief Startup, Megalith Portal, and a Hayari at Eknister. Alright, so that does it for our first pack. I am very happy with getting another copy of this, especially seeing as this is really shot up recently, and I will likely be seeing this shoot up again when more support comes out for it. So, on to round 3. Round 3 was my first loss of the day. I was playing against True King Dino. Game 1, not much I could do. He OTK'd me. Game 2 was a bit of a grind because I managed to stop him in his tracks with Crackdown, and I managed to stop him in his tracks with Defensive Changban, and so I decided that Crackdown and Defensive Changban would sort of be two cards that would be really useful for me throughout the day. So I started siding them in a lot more, especially the two Crackdown. I started siding them in for the mind control, and as I said in the deck profile, link in the description below, I would probably put the Crackdown in over the mind control any day of the week. And that's sort of the big change I had from this deck. In Game 3, we ended up again going into a bit of a grind fest, which allowed me to see my one-of Raigeki. I was able to Raigeki his board, put myself in a better situation, but in the end of the day, I just couldn't keep his Conductor Tyranno off the board, and his ultimate Conductor Tyranno was able to just flip everything face down and push for game, which is a bit of a shame, but that's how the cards fall, right? So there wasn't much I could do about that, and at the end of the day, I ended up just losing to True King Dino, which was a bit of a shame, as I say, but yeah. Next round was round 4. This was another win for me, so hey, spoiler alert, this was a win. It went to Game 3. I was playing against Danger Lunalight, and this was probably another one of my favorites, because my opponent didn't really care about what I was doing, and this is the big PSA, guys. Read what your opponent's cards do. My opponent didn't really understand what my cards did, and so a lot of the time he misplayed and put himself in a bad situation. In Game 1, I ended up going second, which sounds fantastic, right? That's what this deck does. But it didn't really help me, because I couldn't really do anything to break through a 4-material Apollousa, which is 4 monster negates, and a Psyframe Gamma Lord, and he had Psyframe Gamma in hand as well, so there wasn't really anything I could do to play through that. So in Game 2, I decided I was going to go first, and I sided in Changban. And what I did was I was able to flood the board really well. I think I ended up with a board that had these 3. The board that had Shugong, Liu Shuan, and Sun Mo with the Sun Liu Alliance on it. I also ended up with Changban in the graveyard. So, when my opponent declared an attack, I activated Defensive Changban, banishing the card, and special summoning from the deck Valiant Zhang Dai. My opponent then redeclares his attack. I then activate Liu Xuan's effect, which then lets me trigger Sun Liu's effect to give them all 1200 attack boost. And he'd already gained another 300 because my opponent had a monster, and it triggered Sun Mo's effect to bounce a card back, and it triggered Xu Gong's effect to negate a monster effect on the field. So my opponent ended up with a big board of a lot of monsters, with a couple monsters, but he just couldn't power through this. He had to pass the turn back to me, and I was just able to OTK him on the next turn. So this is what I mean by this deck can go first. If you manage to get a board with these 2 on field and Changban and Grave, you're in really good shape, because you can special summon out Valiant Zhang Dai. Now, obviously, you do have to have another Ancient Warrior on the board, because you have to have something your opponent can target for an attack to trigger Changban in the grave. But this was Game 2, and I was able to push him for game and put him in a situation where there wasn't much he could do, even though I'd given him the ability to OTK me by letting him go second. Now, he ended up going into Utopia Double, which I was able to stop with this whole interaction of Changban, and then bouncing Utopia Double back to the hand and putting him in this tight situation. Game 3 kind of came down to my side deck a bit again. I ended up going second, and I opened with a Crackdown that I'd sided in. A Crackdown that I'd sided in, and a Gamma Seal. He built a board, I Gamma Sealed his Apollousa, got rid of that as quick as I could. I set my Crackdown, and I pushed I ended up building the optimal board of Sun Mao and Liu Xuan. I had Changban set face down. My opponent then started to, on his turn, on turn number 3, he started trying to do something and like stop my build a big board again. He didn't have a second Appaloosa to go into. He went to attack. I activated this. I then bounced something back, and I then activated Crackdown to take his last monster, and he couldn't attack me. And then on my next turn, I used Sun Mao, and I got rid of the Crackdown to search out the Zhongde, special summon the Zhongde, and managed to push for game that way. And so it was quite good. Yeah, my opponent got his monster back when I got rid of the Crackdown, but at the same time, searching out the Zhongde meant I could get over the monster, and I was in good shape. So this was sort of how I came into winning the game overall, and actually that caused my opponent to drop at the end of the game, which was a bit of a shame because I hate seeing players drop, especially early. There's no point. He came all the way out to play the whole thing. All right, so that's round 4, which means guess what, guys? Another pack. So here we go. Actually, we're going to keep all the garbage together over here. Alright, so we have a Chronomaly Tuspa Rocket, Cataclysmic Crusted Calcifida, Daruma Dropper, Ancient Warriors Graceful Shugong, oh! And an Ancient Warriors Loyal Guanyang. These packs, they know what I'm talking about, clearly. Execution of the Contract, Hyariad Ignister, Karakuri, Gamma MDL, 4624, Shirakunishi. God, that's a horrible name. You know, this is why I could never play Karakuri, because, as I've stated in previous videos, writing that on one of your sheets for a deck list, oh, that'd be awful. And a Water Leviathan Ignister. So, clearly, I feel like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Gods are paying attention to what I'm talking about, considering the fact that we've managed to pull all 3 of these in our first 2 packs. Alright. So, unfortunately, that is it for wins. The rest of it's going to be quite depressing, and we're going to talk about losses. So, in round 5, I went up against Heroes. It was a full-blown Heroes with Malicious Bane and a Dusted Gold, and, you know, so it was a full hyper-competitive Heroes deck. Game 1, I was able to win. I was able to spam the field with a Loyal Guanyang, a Valiant Zhongde, a Liu Xuan, and a Sun Mao. And so I was able to start really breaking the opponent's board quite well. I managed to remove a monster using Loyal Guanyang, and I put my opponent in a tight spot. However, at the end of the day, this won me game 1, but it didn't win me the whole thing. In game 2, my opponent ended up going for Malicious Bane, and while again I was able to establish a board much like this, I don't remember if it was quite this, but establish a big board, my opponent Malicious Baned and managed to blow the field up, which put me in a tight spot, and then he just pushed for game using Malicious Bane. And in game 3, my opponent managed to go into Dark Law, and I had managed to establish the dupe lock of Liu Xuan and Sun Mao, and I actually even managed to crack down my opponent's Dark Law, meaning that my opponent's monsters were getting banished, because while I can't activate his effects, it doesn't actually negate his effects. So my opponent's cards were getting banished. I put myself in really what I thought was a good shape, but I ended up having to use Pot of Desires twice to get to this situation, and because I ended up using that, I really narrowed down my deck and ended up running myself out of resources. And my opponent then was able to Malicious Bane and just push for game with that yet again, which, bit of a shame. In round 6, I ended up playing Invoked Mech Knight. And again, I managed to establish a really good board, even though I had to go first. And that was Liu Xuan, Sun Mao, Valiant Zhongde, and I even managed to get the Sun Leo Alliance on the board at the time, which meant that my opponent sort of was in this boat of he had to do something about that really quick. Wasn't much I could do, and I put myself in a bad situation. I managed to win the game for game 1, but I put myself in a situation where my opponent was able to dictate if he went first or second because I won game 1. And in game 2, he managed to lock me out of everything using the Mech Knight engine and the Mech Knight spells and traps, and just push for game that way. And then in game 3, he managed to lock me out because everything being Beast Warrior kind of hurts when your opponent activates there can only be one. So that was a bit of a problem for me. So at the end of the day, I couldn't win round 6, but it was clutch. It was a good back and forth, but I couldn't do much considering the fact that my opponent A locked me out and B locked me out in round 2 and was able to OTK me, and B was able to see there can only be one, which my deck doesn't have a whole lot it can do without seeing Twin Twisters. So while I did slide in my Twin Twisters, it just was too late. Too little, too late. So, oh well. And that was round 6 for me. So there we go, our second to last pack. We got one more round to talk about, and 2 more packs to open. So, hopefully we get something good out of this. That'd be really good. So, 1 Daruma Dropper, 1 Time Thief Retrograde, Megalith Phaleg, spoiler, Sky Striker Scissors Cross, 1 Code Talker Inverted. This is really nice for me. I'm looking to, someone's already requested that I update my Code Talker deck profile. This is one of the pieces that's definitely going to be going into it. As I've said, I won't be updating it until Eternity Code comes out, because Access Code completely changes the deck. But this is definitely one of the key pieces for the new deck profile for that. 1 Link Party, 1 Double-Edged Sword, an Obsessive Oovaloop, and a Time Thief Chrono Quarter. Alright. So we'll put that aside. After round 6, we were 3-3. I thought maybe I could still end with a plus 500 record. However, as I've already stated, that didn't happen. In round 7, which is the last round of the day, we played against Infernoid. We played against Infernoid. The reason I lost game 1 was big board wipes. He was able to use his Decatron and all his other cards to create monster negates and spell negates, and he was able to then use his big boss monsters to board wipe my field and just push for game. Wasn't really a whole lot I could do about that. In game 2, because I knew he wanted to Iron Wall, he wanted to banish, I used Imperial Iron Wall from the side deck, and I activated that, stunned him out. However, I managed to use a Gamma Seal to take away one of his big boss monsters, and found myself in trouble because he managed to negate one of my monster effects, making it so that I couldn't actually get over my own Gamma Seal, and I couldn't see any Ancient Warriors. I kept drawing and drawing and drawing. It probably went on for about 10 turns of me just drawing cards and unable to get into any Ancient Warriors. He ended up winning, and the bit that really annoys me is the next card on my deck was a Loyal Guanyang, which would have got me over my own Gamma Seal and let me push for game. But, as I said before, sometimes that's the way the cards fall. So that's really how the Reading Regionals went. I'm not totally unhappy with it. 3-4 with a deck that really I'd only been able to play test for a day or two. I was quite impressed with. I'm looking forward to the next iteration of this with the Fire Ancient Warriors in Eternity Code, and I will be updating my deck profile and my combo tutorials with them when that comes out. Now, as I promised, one last pack. And we end with a secret rare. Forget ultras. I want a secret. So here we go. 1 Donyorobo Attic Mister, Time Thief Retrograde, Black Sea Squatter, Megalith Phaleg, Changban. Another Code Talker inverted. In fairness, I do need a copy of this anyway, so I'm quite happy I got it. A disposable learner device, Armory Call, and a Dragon Maid send-off. And with that, I'll send you off. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you have, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at whatever it is I'm doing next.